Music, rap, and hip-hop have taken a fall. It's only us two left.
So now it's just metal!
I mean, I'm sure we'll mix it up in the coming weeks, but at least for me, this week, it's definitely going to be a metal album. So
Me too.
I have
#me too.
Melissa by Mercyful Fate. Do you know anything about Mercyful Fate?
I do not. By name.
Okay. Lead singer, King Diamond. This very grim looking man.
He looks like what's that guy from House of a Thousand Corpses? The fucking clown guy.
Captain Spaulding.
Yeah, Captain Spaulding. I love that fucking guy. I actually had a in the style of Tom Hanks talking to Wilson, I had a skull that I called Spaulding for the longest time that I would just like talk to.
So Mercyful Fate is from Denmark. They're Danish. They're a heavy metal band. They formed in they formed probably a little earlier than 1983, but they had a release in 1983, and I'm pretty confident that was Melissa. Yeah, this was their first album. So your guitarists are Hank Sherman and Michael Denner. Michael Denner went on to continue with King Diamond in his... Oh, no, I'm sorry. He did not continue with... I'm sorry. I don't know all the facts yet.
I just got a fucking idea for like a suggestion box style artist. Fucking King Neil Diamond. It's fucking black metal disco, dude.
But so Mercyful Fate had King Diamond, Hank Sherman on guitar, Michael Denner on guitar, Timmy Grabber Hansen on bass, and Kim Ruz on drums. And these guys had a band without King Diamond a little bit before Mercyful Fate. They were called the Brats, I believe. So being a heavy metal band from the 1980s, they have that transition of eras that I really like. So it's got this commercial.
So it was 83 when they started, so it was like early 80s,
Yeah.
what, like the leftover slop from the 70s going in?
A little
or
bit.
just like some early 80s stuff?
Early 80s stuff. And
because like cock rock didn't really take the world by storm until the late 80s.
Okay, well then this is early, kind of has this early cock rock guitar feel to it,
Really?
in my opinion. Because
Proto cock rock?
because Hank Sherman, their guitarist, and King Diamond will later on have a dispute about Hank Sherman wanted to go with a way more commercial approach. He wanted to appeal to the masses with a commercial sound, and
Hank Sherman wanted to eat.
yeah. And King Diamond said, I want to sing about Satan in falsetto. And Hank Sherman said, but I want money. And King Diamond would strike off solo. I mean, it didn't kill the relationship because King Diamond has said, I will do stuff with Mercyful Fate, and I think they're actually planning something.
They worked it out like adults.
Yeah, and I think in the future there will be more Mercyful Fate, but holy crap, the first half of this album is just amazing. The opening track, Evil, just wrote me in, and it wasn't just King Diamond wailing falsetto style, which is something I've said on here previously I'm not a huge fan of. And I actually was not a King Diamond fan whatsoever before this. I've actually made fun of him quite a bit for his style. But it works. The style on this album works together, and I have been jamming it pretty much for a week and a half. This album's kept coming up for me. So
Was this like your first exposure to it, or have you been...
This was my first exposure to Mercyful Fate, because I kind of always put it to the side. I was like, King fucking Diamond. I've seen the pictures of Mercyful Fate together, and everybody looks like they're having a bad time because they're stuck hanging out with King Diamond. Like, I'll bring up a couple photos here. Like, look at these guys. King Diamond's grim and on it, and the other guys are just not having it. They're just like, why is this dude doing this to us?
Right? It's like fucking... some KVLT with the fucking with ABBA behind him.
There's one where they're in a graveyard and the band in the back is just like, why the fuck are we doing this? I can't find it, but
it's like Captain Spaulding and his victims.
Yeah, but the first, because when this came out as a cassette, the first half of this album is absolute ripper songs. They're well constructed, really well thought out. King Diamond shows his vocal range, which is actually really stunning. I'm still not a fan of his sustained falsetto stuff, but he does have a really good vocal range, and it is pretty appealing to me, having listened to it now a couple more times. And then the second half of the album, with songs like Satan's Fall and Melissa kind of wean off on me. Satan's Fall has way too much falsetto stuff in it for me, and it times in at a whopping almost 12 minutes.
I mean,
it is a long song.
There's just something about oops. There's just something about Satan and falsetto that don't quite go together to me with like this day and age.
And then the closing track, Melissa, is like I don't want to call it a ballad, but it's a slower song, and it kind of threw me out of the rock and groove. I got thrown out of the ditch. But Evil, Curse of the Pharaohs, Into the Coven, like, they're well constructed. King Diamond tells a story. That's kind of his style. He likes making likes painting an elaborate picture and a tale
like
in his tracks.
Something like that, you know, some dungeons, some dragons.
Like Into the Coven is about bringing people into the witch's coven. Curse of the Pharaohs, take a guess what that's about. Like, I really am enjoying this album.
Lich King of the Titanic.
I'm really enjoying this album. I think the guitar work is... Some of it's pretty simple, but when it's all put together, it just sounds great. I love it. I think I can see... I'm now able to see why people are rocking Mercyful Fate. I'm turned on. I'm hard for Mercyful Fate.
Kind of sounds like when it rolls off the tongue, it sounds like Faith No More.
But
Mercyful Fate.
When you look at King Diamond's solo stuff, it's vastly different. I mean, obviously it's still King Diamond singing, but the guitar and instrumental work is definitely way different than the stuff from Mercyful Fate. Mercyful Fate, I get images of dudes jumping around in onesies and leotards. I know they weren't at the time, but they were definitely rocking, you know, denim jeans and leather jackets. But
that stuff didn't really hit until like the late 80s.
But they're rocking, man.
Like there's that whole transitional phase into like the cock rock, which was dominant in the late 80s, and then the same kind of like flabbergasted attitude permeates like a lot of the artists who got taken over from cock rock by grunge, because it just like took over. You have that so that's kind of interesting to hear that, like, that's like where it's stemming from, you know, just like that falsetto 80s style in the early 80s translating into what like dominated the style in the later 80s, and then just like knowing how those people felt once like bands like Pantera and like these grungier, like dirtier, more depressed kind of like overtones and like the style of music came out. Like you have like Pearl Jam and Nirvana and Soundgarden. Those like the big ones. I wish I knew more about like the underbelly of grunge, but there's only so much you can know
only
about,
goes
like,
so deep for us
really?
on the surf. I mean, I know it goes
I thought
deeper,
you were going to say subculture.
but I mean, for a lot of us, it's all surface skimming for grunge for a lot of us. Because it was it's what was presented to us on MTV and stuff like that.
Like Sam was referencing that fucking song, Where Are You Going With Tomorrow? I always thought the fucking next vocal in that song...
Soundgarden?
No, I forget what it was. I was just talking about it with Sam.
Eddie Vedder?
It sounds like them because they all adopted that style. But I always used to think that he says, where are you going tomorrow? Where are you going with the master plan? He's actually saying, with the mask I found.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, huh?
But to put it into perspective, so Mercyful Fate drops this album 1983. They're booked to tour with Ozzy Osbourne. Ozzy ends up canceling the tour. But these guys later on would end up touring with bands like Man of War, Motorhead, Twisted Sister, Metallica in the early years, like Lita Ford, stuff like that.
One of the things...
so it's got that kind of heavy... That's the kind of heavy metal it is.
Yeah,
and then it
I don't associate Twisted Sister with like cock rock, really. I more associate them with anthems, but more recently, what I've associated, not necessarily Twisted Sister, but Dee Snider with, was him going to court with the lead for the Dead Kennedys.
Oh,
like, not court, but Congress, like
for
testifying
the,
in front of
censorship stuff.
Yeah.
It's obviously well-spoken dudes.
Yeah, they like Dee Snider walked into Congress looking like Dee Snider in the 80s, just not in drag, and was like presented a better case than this, basically this
attorney, prosecutor, or whatever.
A church lady, a Dana Carvey church lady archetype.
You gotta think of the children.
Won't you please think of the children? Could it be Satan?
But for this album, if you don't want to sit and listen to the whole thing, I would recommend the first 3 tracks. Evil, you definitely have to check out. Curse of the Pharaohs and Into the Coven are also definitely worth checking out. And then, actually, it's not on this album, but it's on an album called Beginning. The track is known as Doomed by the Living Dead. That's a good one, too. Vast vocal range, great guitar work. Overall, I'm going to give it like an 8 out of 10. Overall for the album.
Okay. Yeah, I will definitely have to check that out just through the like interest of like learning a bit more about like where the 80s like evolved through. I'm just like calling up my I wanted to get some like info. I should have like kind of
usually I get notes down and stuff, but
what I've been trying to do for this format was like try to like take as much in as I can and then like talk from like the hip, just to like kind of put my own like style and analysis over it, so I wasn't like depending on like hard facts, because I'd like to like give like some hard facts, but I'd also like to just like give my my own analysis on it. So
yeah, I hear you. I just usually try to get a couple notes so I can give some facts, but lately at work it's just been a lot of micromanaging going on, so I'm not really I'm not able to.
So not you gotta look on your own time. What you're looking at this stuff at work? What?
Yeah,
what did you say?
Yeah. So.
This week's album came from Ryan Oswald, guest on the show a couple weeks ago. Last weekend, I put up a Give Me Your Weird Music thread on Facebook, to which I always have outstanding results. As long as I put like a good amount of time between them. If you put up a thread and make it about like, what are you into? Like, give me some of what you're into. Like, those end up being like really good threads. Even on Facebook, even though it's the Zuck. The Zuck space. So Ryan had recommended me this band. I was like, give me your weird music. He recommended me this band called Igorrr. It's
like Eyegor.
No, like Igorrr, as in Frankenstein's assistant.
Sorry, yeah, Frank,
but with 3 R's. Igorrr.
I'm sorry. What is that movie with Gene Wilder? It's
Young Frankenstein.
Young Frankenstein.
Yeah, I actually sent him. I actually sent him a GIF of what hump. Just like looking at this stuff, and this was like the thread winner. Like, all you guys out there that submitted music, fucking, there's some great stuff in there, and I listened to all of it all the way through. But this is the thing that just blew me away. I was like, wow, this is like the fresh new thing I needed to like listen to. It wanted me it made me want to put it on again. And so the album is by Igorrr. It is called Savage Sinusoid. And it is by a Frenchman. I don't know
French
his
got some
actual name,
stuff.
but yeah, if you could look up the album art for this, it's very weird. It's like kind of an
What was the album again?
Savage Sinusoid. So basically what I would describe this as, the first time listening to it, the song that I was presented called Humanus is like the hands down like stranglehold over the album. This is like the most memorable song of the album. It starts out with accordion, just solo accordion, and it's playing like a kind of like rhythmic passage. But it's the thing about Igorrr is he has this amalgamation of styles, but it's like cohesive styles. He blends black metal with opera and like Baltic styles.
This sounds like it's appealing to me.
It's very Euro. There's not much like lyrical work to it. Oh, and there's like a big sprinkling of electronic manipulation over it. What I was referring to it as, this track in itself, I called it power hype, because the song it like establishes a motif and then like kind of like switches what the style is by like incorporating other instruments into it. Like if you start at the beginning of this album, you're going to have an entirely different perspective on like what you're about to experience, versus if somebody puts this song in front of you, it just starts out with like accordion, just like da, 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 da. It's just accordion. And then all this other shit come in. Like I'm talking operatic vocals soaring, fucking blast beats, blatant blast beats.
Shameless
Absolutely blast
shameless
beats. Then fucking like distorted 808 GABA style bass drum, just blown out bass. Back to blast beats. With fucking like these bass lines that are crafted by somebody who is obviously like into like more of like a fusion-y style. So this I could see that this climax of this album and in this track came from somebody who basically developed a music style by taking like a bunch of them and cramming them together, like we like to do
look
now.
at this album cover.
Just solo. Yeah, look at this. Yeah,
I get the feeling of where you're going with this. They're all just shoved in there.
Yeah. So like it started out as just like a guy, I believe, and it didn't become like a full lineup until 2017.
With like session musicians he's pulling in and stuff.
No, I think he was just like doing it in like a bedroom for a while. He had like other ones.
No, I meant for his musician pull. Like he pulled in session musicians, or he got other people.
I don't know. I can't actually say. That'd be interesting to dig into. I think they're doing it live, so I would think like some session musicians, and like I think they're actually able to pull this off live. And I would love to fucking see it. But overall, the what I took away from it was that it didn't take itself super seriously because of the amalgamations of style. It would like set itself at like the beginning of this song, after you listen to like the first two tracks and then you get this one interjected into it. It's like, oh, this is kind of silly. And then you'd get like these long, like kind of like intense, very like berating, blasting, grating segments. You know, like I love punishment in music. It's one of my favorite things is punishment and reward.
Like the punishment.
You know, punch it, baby. Just come on. With this album, I feel like once it gets like too serious, once you have like a a length of time where it's like, oh, this is operatic and this is like super classical. It just basically flips it on its head and just like, nope. Like shits on it. Like as far as like Baltic and like European style and like kind of like that gypsy vibe, they literally have sound bites of like chickens clucking in this song. Like accordions and chickens clucking merged together with like blast beats and GABA is like and opera. It has it all. It has it all. What more could you want?
So do they get a chicken for that part, or
actually,
they go hate beak on us?
If
or
you
what?
look up Igorrr on his Wikipedia, there's actually a picture of him just like sitting in a chair with a chicken. Like very well done. Like
that's actually my pet chicken.
Not the album,
yeah,
but the artist. Yeah, there he is. Actually, I think on some of the credits I looked at earlier, there is actually like a credit for the chicken.
It must be his. I bet he has a pet chicken. Yeah, these guys look pretty black metal.
Yeah, that's one of like their main styles that they like say like it does have like a, I'd say the glue that holds it together is metal and heaviness, but there's all these other styles that just get like brought into the fray that just make you kind of forget what the fuck you're listening to. It's wild.
Oh, look at this. They had collaboration with Mayhem guitarist Tellock. That's pretty cool.
I don't know who that is. Is he the guy who got 8?
No, he's Mayhem's current guitarist, who is very good in his own right. I actually like the last album they put out quite a bit. It's not... the last album they put out is called Esoteric Warfare. It's good, but it's really hard to follow in the footsteps of Ordo AD Chaos, because that album...
Now, what is that? Ordo AD Chaos?
The guitarist on that album was known as
it's a guy's
Blasphemer.
name.
That was Mayhem's album.
Okay.
But it was at that time, although Mayhem was still black metal, they transitioned to this avant-garde style, and that album as an avant-garde album is pretty groundbreaking. There's no repetition in anything in the songs. They continuously grow from beginning to end.
It's just so hard, like it's so hard to write, and it's so hard to get people who appreciate that. Because like that style, as somebody who like writes music, it's like if you can write a song where there isn't like repetition in it, that is like the musician's dream. Like not to speak for all of them, but playing the same shit over and over again, especially if you play the same shit over and over again in a song, gets very boring. And like there's this bias as musicians to mix it up too much. And I like the shit that indulges in that, where the musicians like do that, where you have a motif basically that you follow, and then you just trash it and move along to the next thing, but make it cohesive.
It also represented a shift in their lyrical content too, because their vocalist Attila, I'm gonna butcher this last name, Shazar, who did the original vocals on Mysteries de Satanis, because Dead obviously killed himself, so he was the one that was called in for lyrics, shifted the lyrical focus more towards our favorite thing, reptilians. And aliens turning humans into a workforce for them. But yeah, that's a pretty interesting album. That's cool that Igorrr did stuff with Tellock. I like him. He's an interesting guy.
I meant to stop that way earlier. All right. There was one more story, and it kind of has to do with music. But it's more news. The Danzig movie. You wanted to talk about
the Danzig movie?
I mean, you seem pretty excited to talk about it.
Let me bring this story up again. But he made a contract supposedly with
Son, I deal with the devil on highway 9. We have this joke about Danzig in his latest single, Highway, what is it? Devil on Highway 9?
Highway 9, oh boy.
Yeah, about him basically being put in front of a microphone and a nurse like pushing on his stomach just to get the fucking wind out of his lungs.
So out of breath. Okay, so Danzig's making a movie, right? And he signed with Cleopatra Entertainment, who I'm not familiar with, and this is going to be focused on Danzig's
look at that.
Danzig's erotica comics.
No.
So the statement made
is
somewhere
Sigourney
in here,
Weaver gonna play Danzig?
I hope so. She's got the thin frame and face that he wishes he had. But supposedly
she's got the lizard man jaw.
Yeah, supposedly somewhere in here there's a statement about Danzig's success making products, basically, and him just being able to have a very strong record of marketing himself and the products that he enjoys, which I don't know how true that is.
So is there like any like tidbits on like what the movie is going to be about, or is it just going to be like Danzig's scaly porn fiasco?
Well, what I have right here in this article is Danzig will pen, direct, and compose music for the feature film, which is going to be great. Devil on Highway 9 will be in there.
God. Danzig directing, that just has fucking box office poison.
It's based on Danzig's own popular Verotic comic book characters. So let's get a look at Verotic.
Yeah, what's Verotic here? Who's this? It basically Devil Young Man Danzig. Of erotic.
Looks like a Harvey Flint. Was that the guy you were talking about earlier?
No, the guy who owns Hustler. Larry Flint.
Larry Flint. It looks like some Larry Flint stuff here. I don't know what any of these are because I have not ever read
some
them.
of this looks fun. I could fap to this, but actually we can't put this on Twitch. We can't put this on YouTube either. We can't put tits and shit.
Look at this one.
God damn it, Stefan. All right, we have to cut all this shit out.
This is Danzig right there. I just stare at him.
Look into the gaze of Danzig. All right.
Is he a lizard? Is he Sigourney Weaver?
I think it is time to call it a wrap.
It was fun. Thanks for joining us.
Yep. Thanks for joining us.
You'll have to let this hold you over till
2 weeks from now.
2 weeks from now. I'll be out of town, just a reminder, and I am sorry. It sounds like that 22-inch double-sided dildo I bought is
just going to go to waste. Just give it to Sean. He won it.
Stick it in his mailbox.
Yep. We'll get a nice lacquer on some wood.
Just staple a note to it.
I mean, I was going to say, like, the loser should get it.
Well, I mean, you get to hit him with it, and then you give it to him, but...
All right. So, in the words of Sean himself,
I'm the best host.
Good day. Good day to you, sir.